Good afternoon, everybody. I thought I'd give a sort of a quick video for week two, modulars 3 and 4. Talk a little bit about that peer review that most of y'all did complete and submit yesterday evening, and look at the rough draft, or not really the rough draft, but the final draft that's going to be due this Sunday. We look at a couple things in modular 3, particularly modular 4, and really sort of segue our way into um, week 3, which would be modulars 5 and 6, which I will slowly start opening up modular 5 as we get closer to Sunday. You will probably start seeing the next essay assignment, which would be essay 2, and probably start looking at when our next our peer review 2, which would be on essay 2 coming up soon. So let's go ahead and kind of dig into this. I will go ahead and share a screen. It's been kind of hot down here at the Camden Center. Our AC has been kind of acting up lately, so it's kind of steamy here on the upstairs part of where I'm at. So I'm going to try to make this kind of quick and brief as possible. So if you look at your modulars, right? The first two I probably went ahead and kind of hid because I'm thinking really by this time, I mean, y'all had about 8-9 days or so, maybe a little bit longer to look at modular 1 and 2. And I mean, if you're going to do that first quiz, you should have done it by now. I mean, obviously that was due last Thursday. And again, if you did the peer review, which was due yesterday, I mean, our third assignment is going to be, submitting that final draft to essay 1. So if you look, I kind of moved the essay 1 instructions to modular 3, which I hope by now you don't need those because you've already have a rough draft that you've written. You should still be able to go into your discussion board and review because it looks like there's been 37 replies. There's been 21 posts. I think there's only one person that didn't really put anything up for whatever reason. So you should be able to go back, find your name, and see if anybody's responded to your particular rough draft. Now, up until probably about 6 o'clock, if you submitted something before 6 o'clock yesterday, I should already have something, up there for you. You can kind of go back and double check and look. You may have to, these downward arrows, click on there and see what everybody said. Sometimes, you could have had multiple people look at your work. So you're going to have a lot to kind of go through. And I tried to reply to them as much as I could. There might be a few that I didn't get to just because if you, uploaded something after 6 o'clock, that's, I usually leave after 6. So if you uploaded something after 6, I probably haven't had a chance to get to it yet. But if you look, it should say instructor Patrick Wilson. That's going to be my feedback. As I said in the earlier email, you have until about midnight. I would say the earlier the better. You have until about midnight this Friday if you want to send me a draft as a Microsoft Word attachment. You want to send it to my email. Not a PDF. I can't mark up PDFs, but if you send it as a Microsoft Word document that I can download, read, and put comments on, if you get it to me before midnight Friday, I should be able to get it back to you definitely before Sunday. That's why I'm saying the earlier, because there's nearly 25 students in this particular class. So if you can get it to me before Friday, that would probably be better. Some of y'all have. So what I would suggest at this point is you go through and look at the comments that I made, if I got a chance to get to your essay, or if if you had many different peers make comments, look at their feedback, see what makes sense, revise your draft. And then if you want to send me or tutor.com a version of your newest draft, that would probably be the best way to go about doing this, because otherwise you're going to have about 4 or 5 different drafts going in all different directions. And that's just going to be more confusing if you're not careful. So you should still be able to at least view that. I will keep this open and probably till, sometime Sunday, maybe Saturday. So you might want to go back and kind of look. Um, if you didn't do anything, you're probably not going to have a chance to go back and really, because the deadline's passed. It was due on the 27th. So some of y'all, if you just uploaded your essay, then you got 50%. If you didn't upload the essay and just commented on somebody, then you got 50% because you didn't follow instructions. You didn't complete the entire assignment. So when we get to doing the peer review for essay 2, you might want to make sure that you read the instructions fully and that you follow deadlines, because again, we're going to be going on week 3 here, starting Monday. So with 10 weeks, right now, we're only going to have 7 weeks left. We're going to start this stuff going, right? It's going to start rolling really fast. And we really don't have too many more holidays. We have Juneteenth coming up in the middle of June. And then you have like a brief summer break, if you want to call it that. We only really have like 2 days off for a summer break. We come back from the 4th of July, and then we only have like 3 weeks left and we're done. So these weeks now, especially since we're getting into the hotter months, things are going to start going faster. Things are going to start, it could be busier some weeks than others. Also depends on, your workload and how many classes you have. I wouldn't, let procrastination become my tag team partner, because it's not going to be helpful. It's going to be disastrous to your grade point average. It's going to be disastrous to your health. It's going to be disastrous to your overall grade as we get closer to the 31st of July. So just be mindful of that. So if you look at your particular, again, we're sort of doing essay 1 is a combination of description and narrative. So if you look here at your modular lessons, there's some stuff that you can kind of go through that's kind of connected to your e-textbook pages, right? Remember, we got that e-textbook. So you can click here and kind of go through that. We have some videos that will supplement the readings, meaning to supplement this and that. If you need to, something a little quicker, you can kind of watch these videos. Some of them can be very lengthy. Some of them can be kind of short. So you want to, make sure that you give yourself enough time. Generally, what I suggest folks to do probably is start with the videos and see how much you kind of already know and don't know from the videos. And then if you need some additional help, go back to these hyperlinks or these pages in your e-text. Because I do realize, right? Modular 1 is like 2 weeks worth of work. Modular 2, same thing, like 2 weeks worth of work. Modular 3 would be the same thing, would be 2 weeks worth of work. So I realize time is compressed. That's why I'm giving you really 3 different ways to sort of learn the same deal. It's just if you need something a little bit more than just the video audio, then read this particular hyperlink when it talks about paragraphs. If you still need additional because the video and this web page isn't helping you, then go here to your e-text. You would find information there. Don't feel like you have to do everything in here. This is just basically for your audio, your visual needs. You can always ask me questions. You can email me. If you need to set up something via, like we're doing here with the Teams, for some, online office or tutoring hours. Like I said, Mondays and Wednesdays are generally better for me. That's not to say Tuesdays and Thursdays I can't do it, but it has to be after 1, between 1 and 6, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Monday and Wednesday, I'm pretty much free. Depending on, besides grading or planning for classes, my Monday and Wednesday is pretty much open after 8 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you need to do something, via Teams, we can do that. If you're in person or close by, right, Waycross or Brunswick, and you want to meet one-on-one in person, we can set up a scheduling where we can either meet in our classroom or we can meet in the library. But I do warn you right now, I don't know how long this this climate change with the AC is going to go on. So you know how hot it is outside. Add about 10 or 15 degrees of that, and especially being upstairs, it's a little bit warm, even with fans sort of passing around hot air. So just kind of keep that in mind moving forward. If you do need some help, I'm here to help you. I would rather you ask for the help early on than wait until, of course, you got that first essay that's due this Sunday. I mean, if you email me at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday and said, I really needed help, well, you had nearly 2 weeks to get it. I can't do anything an hour or two before due date's due. I can't do much after something is due. So you know where you are as it relates to your writing ability and your writing skills. You know by this point, or at least by the time we get into week 3, whether you're going to need help in this class or not. So again, somebody's paying for the course. You probably want to pass it the first time around so you don't have to come back and take 15 weeks of it during the fall or next spring. So if you need help, you need to reach out because I can't read minds and I don't read minds. So I just assume if you're not asking questions or asking for some tutoring or office hours, you know what you're doing until I read your work and then kind of figure out, well, maybe this person did or didn't know what they were doing, but I offered to help multiple times, multiple weeks, haven't received any response back from it. So there's only so much I can do at that point. My hands are tied because when you take this class, we're all adults. Module 4 goes a little bit more deeper into the description. Again, this is the drop box. So once you find yourself at the level where you think you're ready to submit your essay, your first essay, and say, hey, this is the one I want to submit in, this is the one I want the final grade on, you would click here and follow the directions. All right, there's going to be a drop box. You should be able to load stuff on, and there's something that you can attach. So make sure that you do attach it. There is a rubric here. You may have to use like this paper clip where it says attachment. I need to be able to download and read your work, basically, meaning it's better if you use a Microsoft Word document when you upload your attachment because I can download it, I can read it, I can mark it up, put comments on it. If you upload it as a PDF file, I can tell you right now, the only thing I can do with that is read it and give it a grade. So if you don't care about the feedback, I would just read it and give it a grade and we can move on. Most folks want to know about the feedback just because they don't want to make the same mistakes if they're making any from essay 1 to essay 2 to essay 3 and make their grade each, every 2 or 3 weeks start to drop because they're making the same mistakes. So again, if you send it as a PDF, that's fine. I'll read it, but just give it a grade because I can't mark up a PDF file like I can a Word document. That's the whole purpose of doing it, typing it in a Word document file that I can download. Make sure I'm able to download it and read it because if I download it and I can't open it or can't read it, automatic 0. I'm moving on. I'm not wasting time, not playing games here with people. If I download it and it has, corruption of a file, I'm thinking that's a virus. So again, I'm going to delete it, give it a 0 because I'm not giving the college any kind of Trojan horses or worms or any kind of like stuff like that. So make sure that the programs that you are using are free of viruses because if it comes in showing that it's, corrupted file or it looks like it could be a possible virus, I'm just going to delete it and give it a 0 and move on. So that could be, you go into the college library to use their computer, the computer lab, you go into the public library, you buying a new computer or something of that nature, something. But yeah, I'm not playing around a bunch of corrupted files and stuff. I've had that issue happen before. So as you can tell, it has a due date here, 4 days from now. If you click here, this is going to be the rubric. You should be able to see it on your end. This is the rubric that I'm going to use to grade this first essay. So you can kind of use this as a checklist too, right? Developing, competent, proficient, outstanding, 75 to 100, 50 to 75, 25 to 50, 0 to 25. Of course, this goes, A, B, C, D, F cycle. So, kind of keep that in mind as you finalize going from your rough draft of essay 1 to your final draft of essay 1. So you're not having any surprises because I'm basically showing you and telling you here how I'm going to grade the final draft of your essay. Now, going back to, this discussion board, like I said, there's a chance to get 3 grades. This is where those peer review questions you needed to sort of, answer as you read your partner's paper. If you did both, you answered your peer review questions and submitted back that to your partner and you uploaded your rough draft, you got 100%. If you only did one or the other, you got 50. If you didn't do anything at all, you got a 0. So that's how the peer reviews are going to be graded. We have a few of those. We don't have a whole lot of peer reviews, but just because of time. But that's how I'm going to grade those peer reviews. Now, just because you made 100 doesn't mean your essay, your final draft after Sunday is going to get 100. You have work that you need to do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be commenting on your drafts. What would be the purpose if you made a perfect draft? Nobody makes the perfect draft. Sometimes you have to go through multiple drafts just to get a C. Many multiple more just to get a B. A lot more multiple drafts maybe to get an A. It all depends on what your writing level is coming in first, second week of class. Now, if you just got out of high school and you had a lot of AP classes and college prep classes and you wrote a lot, you may not need as many drafts to get that A or B as if somebody's been out of school for 25 years. That person that's been out of school for 25 years may not have written as much over the last 4 or 5 years. So it may take you 5, 10, 15 drafts. That's the whole deal about the writing process. Novels and short stories and plays and scripts and music and poems, they're not just written overnight in one draft. Not too many people can make a really well written story in one draft. It takes multiple drafts. Shakespeare couldn't write multiple plays. He couldn't write, one play in one draft and say, okay, Hamlet's great. He had to go through a revision process, the writing process, just like you're going through, just like I have to go through, just like the people after we're long and gone would have to go through it. There's a process there. So that's why I say you want to sort of pace yourself each day. Don't wait until the end of the week to do this stuff. Because otherwise it's going to be a headache. You're going to hate the class. You're going to hate, summer school. You're going to hate me. You're going to hate, you're going to hate life. But a lot of times you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, well, could I started that stuff a little bit sooner? He did give it to us a couple weeks ahead of time. And more than likely, the answer is going to be, yes, I could have, but did you? No, I didn't. Why? I wanted to do other things. And see, that's 50% of it's going to be on you, if not more, because it is an online course, right? You're supposed to be able to self-pace yourself, self-motivate yourself to get moving, no matter whether you're taking this class spring, fall, or summer. You still had to take the class, right? You're going to need to get credit for the class to be able to transfer or move into another class that requires English 1101. So, you might as well do it right the first time around so you're not having to come back and, retake it, because I don't think anybody wants to come back and retake it. Modular 4, again, I give you some information here, hyperlinks. I give you some page numbers on our e-text. And then I give you some information about these 2 videos. We'll probably talk a little bit more about these videos real quick right now, just to sort of give you something here. And then we'll probably sort of call it a day, because like I said, it's pretty warm here. And I don't just want to randomly ramble here in the heat. So when you look at these 2 videos, right, how to write an essay and then the parts of speech, again, a lot of this stuff, as you're going through it, whether you're just out of high school, whether you came from another college, or whether you've been out of school for 40 years, a lot of this stuff is probably going to come into a little bit more making sense as you do more of it and dust off the old cobwebs in the brain. So basically what we're looking at here is essay writing and drafting made simple. So if you ever stared at a blank page wondering where to begin, then obviously this video is going to be for you. So let's walk through the basics without overcomplicating things. It's summer, it's shorter, it's hot in here. I'm hot at this point because I'm just sweating because it's like 85 degrees in my office. So we're not going to, make things too overcomplicated for anybody at this point. We're just going to move through this particular video. So if you look, right, you're going to know about pronouns. So this is really going to be sort of like a pronoun refresher. So before we dive into the essay aspect, here's a quick refresher on pronouns, right? Pronouns take the place of nouns. So we're not repeating the same word over and over. There are 8 main types of pronouns. You have your personal, which are like I, you, he, she, we, they, right? First person, second person, third person. And then you have the difference between singular and plural, right? We and they. You have possessive pronouns, mine, yours, and theirs. Interrogative pronouns, who, what, which. Demonstrative pronouns, this, that, these, those. Relative pronouns, who, that, which. Indefinite pronouns, someone, anything, everyone. Reflexive pronouns, myself, yourself, themselves. And then reciprocal pronouns, each other and one another. Of course, there's more of that. You probably want to go to like Google and just type in a English pronoun chart to get a full basic understanding of pronouns. But if you're using Grammarly and you're using your Microsoft editor, they should be able to help you determine whether you're using the right pronoun or not. So when we look at basically the essay basics, now I know a lot of times when you look at these videos, they're going to talk about that hamburger essay, that standardized essay that you usually use for an ACT or maybe a GRE if you're going for grad school later, SAT, the high school graduation. Usually a standard essay does have 5 paragraphs. I kind of expected the 5-paragraph deal with this first essay. But as we move to essay 2 and essay 3 and the research paper, you need to break that mold of writing the hamburger essay, meaning you're going to have to write more than 5 paragraphs to get the 6 to 8 pages that research paper needs. Right? I believe the next essay, essay 2, needs to be about 3 or 4 pages. So you're going to have to go beyond 5 paragraphs. So for this narrative descriptive, that's pretty well. You can kind of use the 5 paragraphs, but moving forward, you're going to have to write longer paragraphs to be able to get the word count and the paragraph length and the page length. So usually you have one introduction, right? You're going to have a hook, that first sentence in that introduction that's going to hook your reader in. You're going to give us a little bit of a tease or background of that information, and then your last sentence of your introduction paragraph should be a complete sentence, but it should also be called the thesis statement. If your paper does not have a thesis statement at the very end of that introduction as one complete thought, then you're not going to have a very good essay grade at all. The thesis is sort of like the gas. It's the fuel that moves that essay from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. So make sure, especially as you're looking at some of these peer reviews moving forward and looking at your own essay, that you have a thesis statement, that it is one complete sentence. It's not a question. It's not a quotation, because it has to be your own original thought to make that statement. It should end in a period. Then you're going to have, the standard 3 body paragraphs, but as we go to essay 2, 3, and 4, you're going to have more. You're going to have multiple body paragraphs. Like I can tell you, if that research paper that we had to do in July that has to be 6 to 8 pages, you're going to need at least 12 plus paragraphs to get the 6 to 8 pages. There's just no way you can do that in 5 paragraphs. So as we move along, right, with our essays, the word count's going to go up and the paper length's going to go up. So sort of kind of keep that in mind, and then you only have one conclusion. Be careful. I've seen folks that when they write essays, they kind of have this sort of really short introduction, and they give me sort of like 2 conclusions. Or they give me sort of like this long introduction and this really short conclusion. Your introduction and your conclusion should be about the same length. So if your introduction, which should be probably about a half a page for most essays in this class, then your conclusion should be about a half a page. So think about, 5 sentences for your introduction and 5 sentences for your conclusion. Now for your body paragraphs, sentence length is going to vary a little bit. I mean, obviously you're not going to have 2 or 3 sentence paragraphs, because if you do, you're going to have to write more than 5 sentences anyway, or 5 paragraphs to be able to make the word count and the paper length. So a lot of things that you can do, you can kind of brainstorm depending, there's a lot of different ways. If you read some of the earlier chapters in your book last week or this week about how to start drafting, some, you can brainstorm. Some folks like to use an outline. Think of it as a map for your ideas. Then write a thesis statement. This is your main point, one sentence answer to your essay question with 3 reasons to support it. Now, you don't necessarily have to go the 3 prongs. You can, kind of leave it an open-ended thesis statement if you know what you're doing. Or you can go the 3-prong, maybe with essay 1 to kind of get you started back or started thinking about writing essays again. Then we get into the body paragraphs because, like I said, at some point you're going to have multiple body paragraphs. It's not just going to be 3. It could be 4. It could be 7. It could be 15. Especially depending on how far you're going to go in academia as it relates to your college career. If you're going to, go for a bachelor's degree or a master's, definitely, a lot of times tests and quizzes go away. You're going to have to write longer research papers. That could be 12, 18, 30 pages. So you're going to have to write multiple body paragraphs. At that point, when you start talking about a 25-page paper, you're writing nearly 15, 18, 20 paragraphs just to be able to get that. So kind of keep that in mind. Besides those multiple body paragraphs, we have the conclusion. So you want to make sure that each body paragraph begins with a topic sentence that ties back to your thesis. Now, your book is going to show you different ways you can position that topic sentences. Most students that do well, they usually have that topic sentence, the very first sentence of each one of their body paragraph. And it's usually just one complete thought with one idea. So don't try to overly pack each paragraph with multiple ideas. I've seen that, with some of y'all's rough drafts. Y'all had like a topic sentence that was going on with 4 or 5 different ideas. So it was making your paragraph go for like 2 or 3 pages. You need to use paragraph breaks. Make sure that you're following the MLA 9 essay format. A lot of folks lose a lot of easy points early on just for format. You're not indenting your paragraphs. You don't have your last name and page numbers in the top right-hand corner. There's no header. I don't know who you are. There's no essay title center your paper. Your paragraphs are not indented. You have just one block of text that goes for 3 pages with no breaks. So that type stuff right there is going to drop you at least 1 letter grade. That's 10 points automatically off your grade. If you can't just follow the instructions, watch the video, or read instructions on how to do MLA 9 format for your essays. Some other things that you probably want to think about when you're looking at your multiple body paragraphs. You want to add at least 3 detailed sentences to explain or support that idea. Again, 3 is just a number I'm throwing out there. You can have a little bit more, depending on how long that particular paragraph needs to be for you. Just don't repeat yourself. Use different wording and sentence structures. In your conclusion, you want to restate the thesis and your main reasons. End with a strong, memorable closing line, though. As you start to draft your essay, right? This is the rough draft purpose or process, especially what you've been doing the last couple, probably within the last week. You're turning your outline into full sentences and paragraphs. This is where the real writing happens. Start wherever feels easiest, maybe the second body paragraph or even the conclusion. Just begin. Perfection isn't the goal yet, right? Because this is drafting. This is where you want your peers. This is where you want me to really tear this essay or this rough draft up, spit it out, and throw it back at you and say, hey, here, you need to sort of use super glue and bubble gum to sort of get this back together again. You might need to add some additional details. You might need to remove some stuff. You may need to reorganize or reorder paragraphs. Just make sure that each paragraph is long enough to fully explain your point, but not so long that readers get lost. So some drafting tips, right? As you finalize your rough draft and get into your final draft. Write 1 paragraph at a time. That seems to become more common sense, right? Take short, smart breaks, right? Set goals and stick to them. Keep your audience and purpose in mind. In this case, your audience would be me and your peers, or like more or less a universal audience, because you are telling and describing a story with this particular first essay. Try tapping a reminder card to your, or taping a reminder card to your laptop or notebook to stay on track. And again, if you look at the particular example in your book or on those hyperlinks, you got Mariah's example. I'm not going to go through too much of that, but if you look at sort of the stuff that she's going on, that would kind of help you go through. Make sure that your essay has a proper title that's on the first page and centered. Again, don't just call it narrative essay. Don't call it narrative. Don't call it story. Don't call it paper. Don't call it essay one. Those are too generic, and everybody in this class is doing that. There's got to be a title that fits your particular essay. And that sort of gives the reader, hey, okay, this title, let me read this first paragraph. Let me see where it takes me. Because we don't go to the movie theater. You don't go on to Hulu or Netflix and just look up untitled movie. Oh, let me pay $20 to go watch Title One, the movie. No, we go to see the title, right? We want to. Star Wars, we kind of know what's going on with that. Friday the 13th, we kind of know what's going on with that. Saw X, we know what's going on with that. So you want your titles to be kind of creative. Some final thoughts in this process. Writing is a process. It does take some time. Nobody's going to be Shakespeare overnight. You're probably not going to be, like I said early in the video last week, you're probably not going to be Shakespeare in 10 weeks or in 25 weeks. But writing is a process. It takes time. You have to, pick a topic, brainstorm, outline, peer review, rough draft, final draft, edit, proofread. There's a lot that goes into it. And then, with each piece of writing that we do, we sort of repeat that process over. It's on a different genre and a different topic, but the process still goes. So again, if you're not doing an outline, maybe you should, especially if English, writing essays in high school, you didn't get really good grades on them, was probably because you didn't really outline your thoughts. And you waited probably the last minute to throw a bunch of stuff down on paper thinking it was good, but it was mainly slop. So be careful of that, right? You do have a little bit of time. Again, if you use it wisely and smartly, you have a chance to send me and tutor.com and, get some help from your peers when we do the peer review. So you basically have a chance to have at least 3 or more eyes looking at your work. And really, the more eyes that look at a particular piece of writing, generally the writing improves if you make the process, take the sacrifice to go through and revise, right? Don't just change a couple things and then submit it and say, oh yeah, I moved this comma and made it a period. I took this word out and found a different synonym. I mean, if you're just doing bare minimum stuff, then the grade's still going to be bare minimum. You're not really improving much with your writing. You're not improving with your story, and you're simply not going to be improving with your grade long term. Because if that's what you think editing and proofreading and the writing process of getting better is, then your papers are always going to be basically at the same grade they've always been, probably that borderline C or D level. And now as we move along, they're just going to start dropping more into the F. So you don't want to do that. I don't want that to be sort of your destiny and fate when it comes to getting closer to the 31st of July, because I'm sure everybody wants to do well. I don't think anybody took this class and say, hey, week one, I want to bomb everything. No, I don't think anybody thinks that way. But at the same time, you got to put some effort into it too. Just because it's summer and it's hot and you want to do this and do that, I mean, you got a responsibility, and there's consequences for if you don't sort of follow your obligations for the course. So again, reach out if you need help. But obviously, if you're procrastinating and you're waiting to the last minute, then you're part of that problem of that equation, right? It's not Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson's not giving enough time, or Mr. Wilson's giving too much work. No. Mr. Wilson gave you enough that will fit in a 10-week structure. It's Johnny or Janie that is waiting 10 hours before something is due each week that's causing them to have the heartache and the bad grade and the problem. It's because they're not working on a Monday or a Tuesday. They're waiting Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to try to get 2 or 3 weeks worth of work in. It's just not going to work out too well. No matter how smart you are or how fast you think you are, that's going to cause a lot of problems, especially if you got 3 or 4 other online courses and you're working a full-time job with kids. So that's not really a smart way to approach any course, especially in the summer. Writing does get easier the more you do it. So you're probably going to think by the time you get to the end of the semester, you've written a good bit. You probably will. At least, 3+ essays, 4. I think I try to get at least 5 essays in there. And they're really sort of at a quick turnaround just because we don't have the luxury of a fall or spring semester. So we have to kind of keep rolling. That's why next week you're already going to have the topics for essay 2. You need to go ahead and start drafting for your peer review for essay 2 because in about another week or two, the final draft of essay 2 is going to be due. All right, so that's going to do it for Modular 3 and 4, Week 2 this week. Thanks for watching this lesson. Again, reach out if you need any help. It's your turn. Grab your outline, start your first draft or your multiple drafts. Most of you have already went through some multiple drafts. You got a clear structure. You have got strategies. Now just write or type, and we will come together next week at some point. Hopefully with a better temperature here. And I hope by the time, I will go ahead and have some of these essays graded, depending on if people will turn them in earlier. Again, it usually takes me a little bit of time because essays are a little bit longer than, let's say, a peer review, that type deal. Plus, I got a few other classes that are turning stuff in. So the earlier that you turn in stuff, generally I try to get that back quicker. But there might be a delay depending on how everything goes, because I know a lot of folks, they kind of wait until 11, 12, close to that deadline before they turn something in. But just keep in mind, if you turn something in, you will get graded. Now, as it relates to the 11:50, once it hits midnight on Sunday, if you don't submit anything, the Dropbox is going to close. I'm not going to reopen it because basically you've had this Dropbox open since last Monday. You knew it was coming if you read the syllabus. If you watch some of these videos, you're looking at the modulars. This is just didn't pop up yesterday. So you've known the due date was coming for the last at least a week, almost 2 weeks now. So it hits midnight, it disappears. If there's nothing in it, you're automatically going to get a 0, and good luck with essay 2 because now that 0 is probably going to really hurt your grade because it's one of the first major assignments, right? Essays are major assignments. So that's where a good bit of your weight in this course is going to be placed on. So if you already make a 0 on the first essay, you better start making, really high A's and B's on the remaining essays if you think you're going to pass this class. Otherwise, have a good weekend. Hopefully your Memorial Day weekend was well. You had your barbecue. You honored, if you had anybody, military wise in your family, you honored them. But again, I will get back with you as it relates to modulars 5 and 6 at some point next week, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good weekend. Have a good rest of your week.